So I will never accept any decisions between the United States and Russia about Ukraine. Never. And our people, never. And our adults and children and everybody. It can't be so. This is the war in Ukraine against us, and it's our human losses.
President Zelensky said that Russia plans to use tactical nuclear weapons.
He says many things.
And
depends on what he drinks or what he smokes. He says many things.
Russia and the United States are back at the negotiation table. Their talks lasted for over 4.5 hours in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. It's raised eyebrows around the world. Ukrainian President Zelensky is upset, and so are the leaders from the European Union, as well as Great Britain, with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer ready to send troops to Ukraine.
At stake is not just the future of Ukraine, it is an existential question for Europe as a whole. And I'm prepared to consider committing British forces on the ground alongside others.
All this is looking like the collective West, headed by the United States, have lost in Ukraine and will be forced to listen to Russia. The talks took place in Diriyah Palace, which is one of the residence of the Saudi royal family. These talks were serious. Trump obviously wants to make a deal. America has lost a lot of money because of the war in Ukraine. It's lost touch with the Russian market, which has costed the Americans something in the region of over $300 billion. So of course the Americans took this very seriously, and so did the Saudis. You can tell by a bit of detail. It's no coincidence that Saudi Arabia, a very influential power, is playing the role of guarantor in these talks. Now, Saudi Arabia is a very religious country. People wear hijabs out there and they cover their hair. But the Saudis hosted the Russian delegation in a setting where even the female assistants were without hijabs. This indicates that the kingdom is prioritizing pragmatism and is taking the entire thing very seriously and not making a fuss about dress code. The Europeans and the Ukrainians weren't invited to the talks in Riyadh, and this shows a serious split in Western society. And under Trump, it's going to get worse. They will just continue splitting. But the Europeans are not going to give up. They're not going to give up on Ukraine, of course. They are propping up Zelensky, who's also said he will not give up without a fight.
Звертаємося до Дональда Трампа. Через тебе, паскуда, президенту Зеленському не відправляли зброю. Тобі більше не бути президентом. Ти зрадник і заплатиш кров'ю за те, що зробив.
Слава Україні!
It's all a big mess, but in a good way. It's looking like Trump has finally woken up to the idea of a multipolar world and is looking to divide centers of power. And why not? The Ukrainian army has suffered huge losses. The complete collapse of Ukraine is now inevitable. NATO has no weapons. Ukraine has no soldiers. The mobilization against Russia has failed. And my dear friends, there's only two options for ending this crisis, this war. The war will end with Russian victory on the battlefield, or with very unfavorable peace terms for Ukraine and NATO. And that's exactly what was discussed in Saudi Arabia. All of this drama on the global stage shows us that wars that these leaders make people fight are pointless. Just look at the Americans who went to fight in Ukraine. Hundreds of Americans fought alongside Ukrainian forces over the past 3 years, mostly as part of International Legion, founded by Ukrainian President Zelensky at the beginning of the war against Russia. And now Trump has come in, ruled out any NATO membership of Ukraine, and told Putin that he can take whatever land he has acquired during the war. That's because Trump has no choice. He must back down because a war against Russia is clearly a losing war. And it's not just the Americans, it's also the Polish, Romanians, French, even British boys and girls went over to fight in Ukraine. From a Muslim viewpoint, we should reflect on the verse from the Holy Quran, "Do not kill each other, for Allah is ever merciful to you." And my dear friends, this is a big reminder that the human cost of war is so big. Thousands of lives lost, resources squandered, and countless futures destroyed. All for what? For power, influence and territory? This is exactly what the Americans wanted under Biden. This is exactly what NATO wants. And this is exactly what the European Union fought for. Such behavior contradicts the very essence of what it means to be human. Thanks for listening to the Independent Islamic Republic. Assalamu alaikum, have a good night.